Hey, what's up, Koku? How are you doing?
Um, pretty pretty good. Been some heavy topics this week for sure.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Mhm.
I've seen a lot, and obviously the world is changing so rapidly. Like,
Mhm.
not only like climate change, but you know, we just seem to be entering kind of like a down period. Um,
Mhm.
and I saw that you had covered one of the more gruesome stories. Um, so before we get into that, I'm Drew Breez. This is Unhinged, episode 12.
And I'm Koku Puff here for Unhinged episode 12.
All right, so tell me a little bit about Hollywood star who, right after recording a podcast, gets into a fatal crash. Because this is a wild story.
Yeah, so Anne Heche, who I think a lot of people, if you aren't familiar with Anne Heche's career as much, you probably be more familiar in terms of like from a pop culture perspective. She was
Mhm.
dating Ellen for some time,
Right,
and it
right.
was a really high profile relationship. And she has a podcast, Better Together, with
Okay,
her friend Heather.
okay.
So during this podcast, and to be fair, it's not entirely clear if she really did record that podcast that same day. It can only,
Mm,
we know that's when it was uploaded. So, but it
gotcha.
it certainly seems to align with the or to follow the timeline of what happened as far as the series of
Okay,
events.
okay.
So they pulled the podcast episode, but in the clip that I did put up, I
Mhm.
do have the audio from the podcast, courtesy of TMZ. But in the audio, she was so wasted. No decent person would have ever let her get behind the wheel like at all.
It was
Not even
shocking.
she would have had to sleep it off. She was saying in the audio, she says she was drinking vodka, which was provided by a sponsor of the show, it seems. And she said, and she was joking about it, but she was saying that they were chasing it with wine. So they were like really, really hammered.
Wow. And I mean, that's the crazy thing about podcast culture too, is that
Mhm.
you get the sponsorship and this drink
Mhm.
champs world. It's like there's this incentive to be really
Yeah,
wasted.
kind of really, yeah, toasted and everything. And it's funny because like I get that too. Like I get like, especially that with like with the press kits that come in, I
Mhm.
get sent like a lot of like bottles of wine. I've had bottles of liquor. Like I get a lot of that stuff sent. But I always just think it's kind of interesting because it's like they don't know a person's consumption habits and
Right,
like
right,
or what they're up
right,
against. And no one's ever asked me like, hey, are you good with getting this thing?
right, right, right.
I've even had people try to send me Delta 8 and marijuana samples. And it's just like,
Wow.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wow. So what do you think about like how this has been covered? Because I'm noticing that with Anne Heche, maybe because of her reputation, maybe because of who she is and who she's dated, um, I'm not seeing maybe the same tone of coverage as I was seeing with the La Brea crash,
Yeah, with
right?
the
With
Windsor.
the
Yeah.
with the
That's that
nurse.
yeah. That's an excellent point. I think in this case, maybe people were a little more gracious about it because it was a single car crash. I mean, she
Mm,
almost like if you look at the footage, like I said, she not only okay, there's two crashes.
right, right.
First, she crashes into a garage in an apartment building, and then she narrowly like misses someone and almost killed, like ran somebody over.
God damn.
But it didn't happen. The house, what people don't realize is that when she plowed into that house,
Mhm.
she went all the way through it. The house is just not structurally sound. We're not talking about like she just kind of made it into the living room and inched in a little bit. She plowed through this home, and this poor woman lost everything. Again, she went through the home. It wasn't just like she inched in, it kind of crashed into the door or something or the window. Some of these crazier stories that we hear
Right.
sometimes. She plowed through the home. Her entire vehicle was in the home and it destroyed the structure completely. And the women lost everything. But the woman, I mean, and all these good Samaritans on the ground that were attempting to save her,
Mhm.
they're so clearly traumatized. And even when the women spoke on it, she was so traumatized and so sad about Anne Heche and wasn't even thinking about her belongings or even talking about anything of that sort. She just really truly wanted her to be able to survive this and to get better. So there's a lot of that. But then there's also with this case, the toxicology report, unlike the case with Windsor Hills, Anne Heche had cocaine and fentanyl in her system. So
Right.
if you
And so in the Windsor Hills case, what was
they
there any
said
alcohol in her system?
There was no alcohol in her system. However, the woman had been in 13 prior car crashes. So there's something going on with her too.
She's like a
That she
dangerous driver, maybe.
something, yeah, like she should not be driving. So something else is going on. And they have not yet, told us what goes into that. But in Anne Heche's case, had she survived, she was definitely facing a DUI.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I mean, I mean, it was such a crazy and just horrendous level crash in terms of impact. You're right. It's a miracle that no one else was hurt. And I think that is, I don't know, when I saw your reporting on it, what I was curious about was the theories about like how this crash unfolded, and then like, you know, what exactly people are saying about the sort of nature of the crash.
Well, the way that it's being reported on a lot of the blogs is that they're wondering how she was able to just pop up. And
Right.
what people don't understand is that, especially if you look, that's why unfortunately, I had to include the footage of the car in the record so people could really, really understand the impact of what really took place. She was not, I guess what they thought is that she was in a body bag. What she really was in a protective sleeve because she was burned so severely. They were trying to protect her skin because she was going to need the necessary surgery to stay alive. So that's a very different thing. So when she popped up, it wasn't because she was dying or dead necessarily at that moment. She was being protected. So when she popped up out of shock, it would seem, and actually with the adrenaline rushing with something like cocaine and in your system, that's entirely possible. It may have seemed just optically, if you don't really understand what was going on, that maybe she was being restrained in some kind of, negative way, or some kind of conspiracy was involved, but it was nothing like that. And I truly believe that, they probably knew as soon as they had to sedate her, there was very likely a chance she was never going to come to because of all the, it's very dangerous to sedate people anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
You have to, it's very dangerous. So, especially if you're having a surgery, like I've had minor surgeries where they've asked if I wanted to go under, and I've just told them no. They asked me if I wanted to go under to get a wisdom tooth pulled. And I'm just like, no, like, I mean, why? Yeah, you just don't know how you're going to react to any kind of anesthesia. You just don't know, and some people just don't come out of it. So, with all of those, you've got the fentanyl, the cocaine, potentially the alcohol was involved here. Who really knows? Maybe she was hungover in addition to those things. And, alcohol is a depressant. Things like cocaine are uppers. I mean, who knows what kind of cocktail that really exactly this loopy cocktail that was going on. And she's also admitted to having mental health episodes and issues where she's had admitted to even like dissociative disorders where she has, split basically personalities. And I don't want to use that in a derogatory way because I know that is not necessarily the language that we use in this day and time, but essentially she had characters that were kind of existing within the same mind, right? So, and this was something that she had dealt with because of abuse in her childhood. She dealt with depression. She had been sexually abused by her father. I mean, it's just such a sad, sad story. And you see all these things that have happened to where she ended up, the highs and the lows, and you can just kind of see that you'd never know where this was going to go, but it doesn't seem like it was ever going to be something that
I
was
just wonder how accountable can they hold the people who were around her if that timeline is accurate, right? And she was getting, potentially loaded before getting into her vehicle. I just wonder, like, in the legal system or just generally, like, how accountable can we hold people who are around you? Because I know no fam of mine is gonna let me leave a place. Never. Like, clearly, because I mean the audio is like, this is slurred to the point of this person is not good. That they might pass out or lose consciousness or have impaired judgment. And I just don't
I wouldn't even have uploaded that episode. Like, first of all, you're gonna lay down. We're not gonna do this. We're gonna do this another day, and just lay down. Like, But I definitely would not have uploaded the episode because it sends off the wrong message. Now, in addition to that, there is a picture of her in her car just before the crash, where she has some kind of, you could see it within her cup holder. There's vodka there, and it was pointed out that there was vodka in there. So, I mean, it kind of, again, it all kind of like matches up to the timeline that must have been right after the podcast.
Do they still have the episode up?
No, they took the episode down.
That's very indicting of them, right? Like, I just feel like if you have the wherewithal after to say, oh, this
Mm-hmm.
is a bad look, like, why couldn't you look out for your friend? And it definitely makes me feel like, at least in that world, that celebs like her might not have the kind of friends that they think they do.
They definitely don't. Because I'll tell you what, to speak specifically to your point,
Mm,
if you and I went to a bar today and let's say we get super, super, super freaking wasted and just some local bar, and
yeah.
then we go and get into a car accident, that bar would be held accountable if that
Oh
was
yeah.
if yeah. So that something should and could be done if everybody in Hollywood wasn't like above the law, you know?
Right, right.
Mhm.
That's a great point. I mean, I'm seeing more of this kind of, I guess since the Slauson and La Brea crash, the Windsor Hills crash, I feel like I'm seeing more of the crash coverage. Cause I even saw um that one that took place in Chicago.
That
And
was gruesome. I
it
could
was
not even
really grim.
believe what we were looking at. I could not believe that was run. Like it was run with the same kind of just haphazard, like, just okay, whatever, like a fluff piece, like
Right, right,
like a happy birthday, to the kids or
right,
something like that. Like it was
right.
really, really disturbing. So, but yeah, I mean, they ran it. It was clear. They showed three men getting run over, and one
Mm,
person is now in critical condition. But literally, we watched three people lose their lives right in front of us. And it's just right there. It has not been removed. It has not been reported. It is not anything that, I mean, when I was questioning, and I wasn't questioning so much to necessarily bashing the outlets, I was just more so just questioning the environment. Like, where are
mm,
we at as a people where we
yeah,
can watch this type of coverage and expect it? Like we
yeah,
expect
yeah,
to see it on such a mainstream level, as opposed to having to do some kind of deep, deep digging, if you care to see something like that at all.
yeah,
But it's like
yeah.
I didn't have to go anywhere and I didn't have to go looking through any sort of dark channels. It just
Right.
was being reported.
But that ends up on my feed so much. That's one thing I
Yeah.
noticed is that, like, whether you're on like entertainment slash gossip blog or you have one of the general interest news sites,
Hmm.
those things will pop up on your feed. And, it's like 50-50 whether there's going to be a content warning or not. And that's
Yeah.
the thing I find disturbing, because even if I can stomach it, I wonder what it's like for those people who are even peripherally involved. Like if that's your friend you graduated from high school with, or if that's your cousin, like that must be a crazy experience.
You recognize that block. You knew who was supposed to be there. They
Hmm.
texted you before. You haven't heard from them all morning, and you're just
Right.
watching it unfold. Then you're hearing people say crazy things on social media. I mean, even kind of going back to the Anne Heche thing, I was looking at the comments people were leaving on her
Mm.
son's page about his mother, and it
Wow.
was awful. It was so, so awful. It compelled me to leave my condolences. It was like really
Wow.
that bad. I'm like, how can you attack this child? Like all he knows is who his mother was to him,
Right. Right.
and I don't know, why she was allowed to drive in that moment, or why no one just forced those keys out of her hand. And I don't know
Yeah.
the extent of her addictions and so forth, and her drug abuse. But I do know that it is absolutely horrible and pathetic for adults to bully a child that has just lost their mother. That is just a type of hurt that
Yeah.
people never get over.
They can't. And I also wonder, like, what these sites begin to say to us about like the value of life
Hmm.
when that's the way they cover it, right? Because I actually don't think, I think like I've said here before, I think there's going to be curiosity about it no matter what,
Hmm.
right? And we can feed into the curiosity, or we could figure out like, okay, what were the stories behind these people, what might have happened, like what are some things that we can do to prevent this from happening? Especially when in the Anne Heche case, I feel like that was preventable. Like just on a human decision making level. I mean, obviously she was very much in the grips of drug abuse. We could
Hmm.
see that. But her friends or any people she had in her community, her support network, should be able to stop that from happening, right? Like I think the other crashes felt like, I mean, that Chicago crash looked wild though.
That was,
I can't
I think,
understand how somebody's going so fast, doesn't see
it
people in the
doesn't,
road.
yeah.
I don't understand that. But I think with the Anne Heche case, there are enough stops within your personal network where people could have said, hey, this doesn't have to happen. You don't have to be driving right now.
I think with that, she probably had, I mean, this is all, of course, speculation, but maybe her addictions were such that this is kind of something that she always did.
She does,
And it's
right?
like she always gets
Mm-hmm.
home, you know,
Mm-hmm.
don't recommend it, don't want her to do it, but she
Mm-hmm.
always makes it back. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe that type of thing. But
Oh, absolutely.
when you listen to that audio, I mean, it's so ominous and dark because in the audio, she herself is saying like she was just having a bad day and she felt funny about something. It's almost like she predicted
She
what was
could
going to
know. She
happen.
knew. She
Yeah,
knew.
yeah. Hmm.
I'm okay. I'm very much interested in checking out more of this coverage, and I want to know where I can find it on the channel because I want our audience and our viewers to know like that this is the kind of information that they can share comments on. So let me know how I can find it.
Yeah, so our channel is broken down into different parts, right? So we have the Unhinged podcast where you can actually watch all the long form episodes. Then you have Unhinged clips, which are just those bits and those clips that they're long form clips in most cases, but maybe a little under 20 minutes or so
Mhm.
on a specific subject if that's what you're looking for. But for something like this with the Anne Heche information where you just need just really quick information on what's going on, these episodes are under the Unhinged rundown.
Okay.
And that's just going to be just quick information, what's going on, what are the people saying, what happened, give me a little bit more insight into the topic. And then that's just kind of keeps you up to speed with what's happening.
Okay, excellent. I mean, that's great to know because I know sometimes we keep it light and we have the commentary, but I was not going to even know about that story until you told me how it was going down, and then I started to check it out and I saw what kind of great reporting you did on it. I was really grateful. There was another big story, at least in McDonald's world, where cold fries seems to be the
big
catalyst.
McDonald's thing. What's up with the cold fries in McDonald's?
I mean, first of all, McDonald's cold fries are criminal. Like, there's no bigger difference between the quality of a food by
That's so
temperature
true.
than
That's so
McDonald's
true.
fries hot, which is like that's like top tier. That's like
That is
McDonald's
like an
fries
amazing,
hot,
yes.
top tier. As
Yes.
soon as it gets even below like body temperature, they're trash. They're like plastic, like chewable plastic. They're awful.
It's just not good. Oh,
So
yeah.
there's a guy who I guess he called 911 because he got cold fries,
Yes.
but he ended up being wanted for murder and got arrested.
But it was not only that. I mean, I guess like if you're wanted for murder, if you're the type of person that can justify murder, and the type of person that can justify murder and call 911, something is wrong with you. Like even for cold fries, something was clearly very off about him. But what was particularly interesting about the clip that was caught on the body cam was when they caught him, he was just screaming like, I mean, it just was like shrieking. It was just unusual. Like, what are you doing?
All right, Mr. Sims, come over here. I'm gonna have you sign this.
I'm not under arrest or anything, am I?
No, sir. Just come over here. I'm gonna have you sign this real quick.
I said I'm not under arrest or anything.
No, you're not. Yeah, just come over here. I'm gonna have you sign this real quick.
You have to sign it saying that you're not going to come back to the property.
So you'll fill this part out.
Can I see it, sir?
Yeah. Will you come over here, man?
No, I'm afraid of y'all, sir.
Why are you afraid?
I just did 3 years, sir. I'm afraid of y'all.
All right, I'm gonna walk you through. Why are you doing that?
I know how to fill it out.
Why are you doing that?
I know how to fill. Am I
All right,
arrested?
yeah.
No, let's take it. Yeah.
Car. 6-2 Kennesaw, call Cobb. Got him! Contact! Backside! Taser deployed! Put your hands out! Hands out! Do not move! Give me contact!
That's the criminal. That's the felon mating call. He knew he was going up. He knew he was going up. He wanted to let people know. I don't know, man. First of all, the body image footage, the body camera footage was like, it was goofy because one of the cops fell, like as he's trying to run him down. So it catches the full fall, and also like, is that just a condition of being uncoordinated, where if you just speed up too fast, you fall? Because I've seen so many clips like that.
There's so many things like that. But I just think like a lot of police officers just really aren't in shape.
Yeah, they would never beat me in a foot race. Like
No, I just don't,
challenge
yeah.
any cop in a mile radius right now to beat me in a foot race, and they're not. Like there's no way that's happening. And it's crazy because they come up to him in the clip, and at first they're asking him to sign something, like to sign
That's the part
like
I didn't understand. Like,
like
because
an
I'm like,
affidavit, or I don't know what it was.
I was curious because what type of information did he give them to require that, or that they started to be
Right.
suspicious from the onset? Because what am
Right.
I signing? If I call, if I call the police and
A complaint. It could be a complaint. It could be like one
oh,
of
so
those like for paperwork. If you're saying that maybe he's filing like a larceny complaint, like, oh, I paid for something and I didn't get what I paid for, kind of thing. I don't know, because I'm like, what else would you be signing?
and you know, it might have even been how he made the phone call and what he sounded like on the phone call,
Mm-hmm.
because they
Yeah.
probably were gonna give him like a 72-hour hold and
Right.
throwing
Right.
him,
Right.
you know, in Bellevue type thing. So that's
Right. Right.
probably really what we were looking at.
Mhm.
If you know, because it just doesn't make sense. So you
I
know,
mean, well, the first thing you do, they pull up to the scene. It's like, if they ID him, if they run plates immediately, dude, you have warrants. Like, it's like,
yeah. How do
yeah,
you?
I don't understand what's the logic in calling the police when you have warrants and it's for murder, right? Like that. It's not like you're someone who could be walking around freely. It makes me think that there's some kind of self-sabotage thing going on where this
I
guy,
think so.
you know, he knew he's caught, or he wanted to be going back inside. I don't know, but the screams, the yelp and the screams,
That was
I
weird.
I feel like he was doing his Black Lives Matter audition.
Mm,
I feel like he knew this is the body cam era, and if I get
mhm,
hurt in a certain way and a certain audience sees a certain part of this clip,
mhm.
maybe I'll be looked upon sympathetically, even if I'm not the best person. Because the screams seem disproportionate and lengthier than what was happening with the taser. You know what I'm saying? Like,
And they weren't, I mean, honestly, like in terms of cop footage, like in this instance, it didn't seem like the cop, this was not like an extremely
it was
aggressive
light.
exchange.
It
Yeah, it
was
was pretty
light.
light. I mean,
You know what I'm
unfortunately, we
saying?
have to talk like that now, but
For
it
real.
wasn't. And remember, I was talking earlier about seeing that footage of that woman who was with her, I guess maybe her boyfriend or date or something,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they were in a park after dark.
Mm-hmm.
And they were in a park after dark. The officer stops. I mean, I don't know any city that you can be in and just hang out in the park
You
after.
can't.
Like, you
You
just
can't.
can't.
After
Like,
dusk, you cannot be
after
in the
dusk,
park.
you just right. And it's like it's just a known thing. It's not anything
Right.
anybody has to remind you of. It's just kind of the rules, right? And I mean,
Yes.
parks after dark are creepy anyway. So why would you
Yes.
want to be there? A lot
It's
of
like that Chris Rock joke about ATMs. It's like, ain't nobody really taking cash out at 3 a.m. for a good reason. You know what I mean?
no,
Like,
what are you this
like if
is
you in the
though.
park after a certain time, you ain't on the swings, G. You're not
No,
like getting on the jungle gym. Like
you
there's
yeah.
only shady things going on in the
There's
park
only
after sundown.
exactly. You are doing something that you are not supposed to be doing. So this woman ends up well, so what happened is I guess the footage that she uploaded, or that she was, you
Mm,
know, kind of like the slant for the media, was that you see this cop aggressing her and like throwing
mm,
her down, and it looks really awful. Like, is it really
right.
that serious just for, like, you know, somebody being in the park after dark? But when you see the longer form video, her male companion that she was with, he was the officer is very clear. If you
Mhm.
guys do not sign the citation, you will be arrested.
Arrested.
Like,
Okay.
he's just clear on it. Male companion signs it right away. It's just like a ticket. It's not like
Right. Right.
it's not, yeah, it's not anything that's going on your record. It's nothing like that.
Right.
So when he asked her if she wants to sign the citation, she's like, I need your badge number. And so he says his badge. Yeah, exactly. She's just really, like, you know, just very stern and very serious and very, you know, just confident,
Mm,
like, I need your badge number. But the officer is not scared. I mean, he didn't do anything
right.
wrong. He was actually very, very calm at this particular point. He gives her the badge number. She asked for it several times, like trying to like write it down or whatever, take notes or what have you. You know, just act, you know, it was just a whole thing, right?
Yeah.
And she said she's not signed the citation. So he's, you know, is trying not to go there, but he's like, ma'am, you're going to be arrested. Like, I'm just, you know, he's kind of trying to do that. And
Mm,
then finally he just has to aggress her and take her down. And I
wow.
guess a lot of the questions are more like, you know, well, did he have to go that far? But then it's like, well, did she have to go that far either? Like, none
Right.
of
Right.
this would be in the news cycle if she just signed the damn citation. You was doing something that you
Yeah.
weren't supposed to do.
Exactly. It's like, I mean, especially for such a minor thing, it reminds me of, I don't know if you remember this story. This was like years ago, where there was an actress who in LA, she and her boyfriend were having sex in like a parking lot or like on the side street of a major movie studio, a movie and television studio, right? And the cops, so she was a black woman, she was having sex with her boyfriend in the car on basically like their lunch break, their mutual lunch break. And it was so out in the open that the people in the studio who had working hours during that day would see them. They would regularly see these two in their car having sex. So eventually someone called the cops on them, right? For public indecency. So the actress gets caught, right? And the cops go up to her, and that actress made it about like police treatment. This is in the wake of like Mike Brown has happened, like all that stuff has taken place. And so immediately she goes to, oh, they're treating me differently because it also happened to be that I think this actress came from a family of actors too. Like it wasn't like she was just some regular person. She was like very entitled, right? And she was like, you know, let's call her a working actress, but she's not someone you would recognize very readily. But definitely operating in the world.
Why didn't they just go into one of the trailers or something like that? Like that's just crazy.
Or any other place but the public.
Or just wait,
exactly. But then made it about how those police behaviors. And I just feel like when folks do that, it undermines really everything that like these activists are going out to make visible. And I know that I'm never going to be in a place where I agree with policing standards. Right. But I do feel like there are certain laws that help us in terms of like maintaining public decency. Maybe I'm biased because I come from a big city, but like, you know, there's things that like annoy me when people don't do, and if they're cited for, if that's like a deterrent from doing it, like I don't want to see you litter, right? Like I live here, I don't want to see you litter.
I don't want
if you get a citation for littering, it's like, yo, just take your citation, G. It's not about like how the cops are treating you in that standpoint. It's about like, yo, how do you maintain your community and maintain respect for what's around you? And I feel like that park case is something like that. It's like, hey, everyone agrees that you shouldn't be in the park, right? It's like, it's just an agreement. It's not about violence. It's not about what the cops are and what you are. It's like, you shouldn't be in the park, so I'm going to give you a citation.
And it's interesting because her excuse was like, well, we're not from here, so we didn't know. And that was where I was just like, everybody knows you just don't hang out in parks after dark.
Where they do that at? Where they do that at where you could be in the parks at night?
All I can say is, you know, to their credit, I mean, they weren't doing anything illicit. They were like hanging out outside the car. So like, it wasn't like they were, you know, they didn't look like they were dangerous people. If you could just tell that they weren't, you know, they weren't on anything crazy, but they just were where they weren't supposed to be. So I guess that's probably why she was so defensive about everything. But then the funny thing is, once he decided to arrest her, she then says she finally agrees to sign the ticket. He's like, it's too late now. We done went through all of this.
She said, no, psych.
Okay, and it's like, nah, you going to jail, mama.
Oh man, I feel like the restaurant industry is in a bind right now post-COVID, but luckily the rich are going to Applebee's for their meals. So Applebee's so Cipriani's is out and Applebee's is in.
Because I was wondering what rich was. Like, are we rich? Like, are we Cipriani's rich? Are we?
No, ma'am, I am not.
Is Maggiano's a rich place?
Listen,
I don't know what the rich is here.
Listen, 3 for $5s. That's how I do my brunch hour. That's how I do dinners. It's like $5 apps. Like, I'm not rich. I don't purport to be, but
no, not at all. I mean, my idea of going on having a good time. First of all, I whip out the app and I see what deal I have. Like my really like premier meal is like going to Chili's.
Really? What's the Chili's deal?
Chili has like, they'll give you like free queso. Sometimes you'll get a free appetizer, but you rack up the points when you're there. And I think Chili's has a damn good burger too.
Take me into this world, because like we're here now, and I'm like, like maybe what the rich are seeing is that there's 10 times more value in the Applebee's Chili's world than there is at Cipriani's.
Let me tell you something. Like, first of all, everybody is competing to have you go into their restaurant, right?
Of course, right.
I have every app. I have them all.
Wow.
I even have Red Lobster, and I hate seafood.
Wow.
But Red Lobster has a very good Wagyu burger.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. The
So yeah,
secrets.
I'm just telling you, if you go on the app and you start racking up this points, so many things are free. I can go outside right now and I can get free things from Chick-fil-A, McDonald's, Red Lobster, Chili's,
Right now.
Applebee's.
Like you
Oh,
you know
absolutely.
that is it because of your points accumulation? Like how does that
A
work?
points accumulation, staying within the text message groups. And I don't even really care for
Wow.
Chipotle like that, but I'm always getting free stuff from
Wait, there are group
Chipotle.
chats? What is the
There's
text
like, they
message
send me,
group?
the only people that ever text me for the most part are for some reason Champs, Foot Locker,
Okay.
Chipotle, and
Okay.
Doctor's Plastic Surgery in Long Island City is always seeing if I want to get breast implants. I promise you, I'm gonna put the text up so you guys can see them. Literally,
Wow.
like they send me some text every once in a while, like, hey, $2,000 off procedure, put it on installments. Like, so it's like, okay, just kind of afterpay, world we're living in where you're putting your breast implants on
Wow.
installments.
So you
Yeah,
could get the 3 for $5 apps, stop over at doctors,
that's correct.
get your chest done,
Yep.
right? All in the same afternoon.
All the same afternoon and then take an Uber back home.
I take it back home. It's
But I have Uber rewards as well because I have Uber
right,
Eats
right.
rewards
Uber
and I have
Eats.
you see what I'm saying?
Right.
You gotta do it. And I have DoorDash rewards. I have
Wow.
everything. Yeah. I think that the levels of couponing and just making sure that you are in the mix as far as what that restaurant is doing and making each restaurant feel like you are they're your favorite.
Right, right.
There's value to that. As long as
So
they have an
okay.
app, there's something in it for you.
So are you saying that like, okay, how long could you go on just like free meals and points off your apps? Like, could you, are we talking like a week here, like a month? Like how
I
long could you go
think
without paying like actual cash to eat?
that's an amazing question. And okay, so for instance, like some of these points do expire, like Wendy's expires after a point, and so does McDonald's. But quite literally, I could probably go about maybe 3 weeks with just simply eating free
Wow.
food from accumulated points. Because also with Chick-fil-A,
Wow.
what they'll do is that a Chick-fil-A operator will just say, hey, here's some free chicken minis. Thanks for coming by. Like, so they'll just send you free gifts. If you're, once you I guess you hit a certain tier level. I
Yo,
never
you're a
really fall
Hollywood
below
insider.
silver.
You're a
So
Hollywood insider.
yeah, I'm a Hollywood. Listen, I know everything. I know about the apps. I know about
So,
them.
so it's really what's crazy is like this kind of reminds me of when the celebrities got on OnlyFans because I feel like they're just gonna like eat up that market share by going to Applebee's, by going in the apps. Like we shouldn't actually be putting them onto this.
I know they're good because the more they come, then they're probably gonna offer less, right? Because then they're gonna start retaining more and more. They'll see that,
Yeah.
that's usually what happens. Everybody then they spoil it for everyone.
Well, I mean, we all know that the rich have it really hard right now. So, like,
It's
we
like
we
no more Mortons. So
yeah.
sorry.
Oh my God, they closed down the Sizzler, and it's been a
It's
tragedy
just
ever
been
since.
hell
It's a
ever since.
disaster.
Applebee's has a great happy hour too, so you can get
Oh
half
really?
price apps. Yeah, you can get half price.
You're actually Princess Applebee's.
Yes, I am the original Applebee. I have been Applebee for many, many years. You can go ahead and use the Applebee hashtag on Twitter, but also use the red apple and the B next to them so that they know that you're
Wow, so
really
they
an
know
Applebee.
they know you're connected. That's like
They know, yeah. Oh no, I used
okay.
to talk to Applebee's on Twitter all the time. Like, hey boo, how you doing? And they'd be like, oh, I'm fine. Yeah.
All right, this next story, because the rich have suffered enough, is an important one. So I guess a CEO, after laying off a bunch of employees, because we're heading into a recession, he posted a candid photo of himself on LinkedIn, in tears, right? Like really like broken, like red faced.
Yeah, he was out of it.
It's like tears just blubbering. And I think in the post, because I don't know how much you're on LinkedIn and how you see people blog, they kind of blog there. It's
Yeah, like LinkedIn has, I'm on there to an extent, but I noticed like how people LinkedIn versus how they Facebook versus how they Twitter.
right,
It's a
right.
very different type of language, and it's always just like, hi guys, I just hired 10 single mothers, and now
Yeah,
they're making 6 figures for the first time in their lives, and it's like
yeah.
5,000 likes. It's like, get out
Yeah.
of here. Like, shut up.
Oh,
You're
absolutely.
supposed
And
to
I
hire
mean,
people that are
no
qualified for
one
the
gets
job.
fired on LinkedIn without it becoming like an inspirational story. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like
Exactly.
it's like, I was down and out, like my 6 months came and I realized that I couldn't do this anymore. So it's definitely like a place for spin.
Yes.
But I didn't think it would go this far. I just feel like with a CEO like this, because the LinkedIn CEOs that people like, and even on Twitter, that people like are the guys who are saying, "Oh, I'm not going to take a salary so that everybody
Yes.
at my company could make a minimum 100K, right? Like 6 figures. Like that's kind of how you have to work the CEO angle on social media.
That's how it works. Yeah. Make
But
it all
this
equitable.
guy, I feel like he wanted our sympathy for making a decision he didn't necessarily have to make. Like, what do you
These
think
people
about
are
that?
tone deaf, and it's mad making. I think it's very self-centered and it's obnoxious. And laying off anybody, like, think about it. To be a CEO, they always say like most CEOs, or maybe not most, but a good high number of them are sociopaths.
Oh yeah,
This is a person that can lay off 2,000 people and still come home, kiss their kids, and sleep well at night, and not
yeah,
even talk about it. Like, it's not a big deal.
yeah.
It takes a certain kind of person.
So I don't know if you've been in a TikTok interview lately because it seems like everyone has. It seems like everyone's gotten in front of a TikTok mic recently.
Yeah, they're just like throwing them in people's faces. You have to avoid Union Square at this point.
Yeah, and honestly, you have to avoid. You know what this reminds me of? In the 2010s, do you remember how YouTube became all girlfriends pranking boyfriends and boyfriends
Yes.
pranking girlfriends? It was like, and then it was like, me and my girlfriend broke up, and like that was like the YouTube storyline of every channel.
Mm-hmm.
I feel
Yeah,
like
people, yeah.
the TikTok version of this is fake interviews on the street. And I cannot say how much more irritated I could be than this trend.
Okay, do you remember not too long ago, maybe about not even a month ago, there's a guy that went super viral because he was just talking about some wild, like, sexual stuff that he does, where he was talking about like filleting himself and like all these things. Do you think that guy was telling the truth, or do you think he was just
All of it's fake. All like I'm convinced. First of all, there was the woman who had the threesome with the guy and his mom.
with the guy and his mother?
Right. There was
And she was like, do that thing you be doing.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, nah, man, that don't
Do
happen.
that thing, mama. Like really?
Yo, I feel like that should be illegal, yo. Like, I feel like that should really be illegal to put videos like that on social media, pretending that they're true. Like, or there should be some sort of disclaimer that is like, this is fake. Like, this is a performance, because not only is it explicit and just like it's a grab with the sensational shit, right? Like, it's just such a grab, but I think that the culture then becomes everybody trying to one up each other on these fake videos. And everything I'm seeing now is like, I've seen the one that I saw today was the guy, and he goes up to the two young women and he says, "Oh, tell her something that you never told her before in your friendship." And she goes, "Oh, I stole your earrings in the 6th grade." And then the girl who's there with her replies, "Oh, well, I fucked your boyfriend 2 years ago." And then they sort of usher off the camera guy like, "Oh no, we need to talk." And what's crazy is that I've seen that exact bit.
Oh my God, now they're recycling the bit.
Yeah, so it's like the same thing with the pranks. It's like someone sees, okay, this works, and then they go and recreate it. And I think because that format, like Man on the Street, it makes people suspend their disbelief. They're just like, oh yeah, well, they're talking to strangers because they have a mic and they're standing like this, and then these people are dressed and they're standing in this position, so people just believe it. And I feel like all of them are fake at this point, but people are like, every day it seems like one of these clips is getting shared.
But you know what? I think it and this might be why we're doing the fake videos, because a lot of the videos that ended up being real were just a little too real. Like, remember when the dude would like go through like neighborhoods like Brownsville and like pulling up people's pants?
Yes.
What the fuck is wrong with anybody doing that in Brownsville? Like, you are bugging.
That was wild.
And then the clip we were talking about the other day would do like foul dude. Well, he was like really, like, the dude was a strong defender, but he takes the ball and puts it in the dude's face,
Right.
smacks him in his face, like that's not real life. Like that just can't happen. So then when the dude, of course, you know, we saw what happened with that, but it's just stuff like that. Once you see where that could have escalated, I mean, it's just these people are probably like, well, let's just go ahead and just hire, you know, actors and just do some stupid
Of
stuff.
course,
And,
of course. That's why, like, look, on Unhinged, you're gonna get the real. We're gonna give you the real no matter what. We might disagree. We might see a clip that is unpleasant or out of context and put it into context, because I think that is what happens is like social media erases context from things.
Absolutely, that's correct.
And then expects you to make this like gut judgment based on what you see in a 30 to 45-second clip. And I feel like that's just so dangerous for people's like media literacy, dangerous for their like critical thinking and decision making. And these platforms don't care because of course it's going to get engagement.
It's designed to do that.
Don't care either.
No.
You know what I mean? It's so wild. So I saw this clip from a podcast. First of all, even as we do a show, which this is going to be a very meta moment, I don't like that there are anonymous shows that I see clips from all the time because somebody's saying something wild out of pocket, or there's some exchange that's happening and it's a person I don't know usually, and they're saying the most like violating thing that they can because that's going to put them on the map. And so I saw this podcast clip, and I don't know again the name of the show, but the thrust of the clip is that there are men and women in a room, and the women say, or the woman who's speaking on camera says, well, I asked him, did he go to lunch with Adam or such and such, Adam and Tony? And he goes, neither, knowing that I want him to say who he went to lunch with. And then the guys chime in really emphatically like, but that's not what you asked. You didn't ask who I went to lunch with. You asked if I went to lunch with Adam and Tony, and I said neither. And I think that then kind of explodes into this discussion and conversation about like, so why don't women say what they want to, and then why men got to be slick? So I wanted to get your take because I know you saw that clip. I definitely saw that clip. This sort of discussion. So I wanted to understand like who should be asking what in that situation, and whose side do you fall on with this one?
So I side with the man. Because you need to be asking the question that you want the answer to. And here's the problem with both of them. I think she's immature. She's very childish. Yes. And she wasn't asking the direct question, and she was just looking to pick a fight, right? But at the same time, he also knows who he's dating, right? So he knows what her triggers are. He knows how she will respond to certain things. He knew that would be a fight moment in that case. Right. So you either just directly ask her to ask the question, which is probably going to result into a fight, or I suppose you just acquiesce and just kind of just give the person what they want. But again, that's kind of like just giving it. Like, I think what he tried to do is he tried to correct bad behavior by trying to make her be more direct.
Exactly, like emulating the behavior he wanted, but knowing that the person you're with is not she's not on that side.
They're not there. She's not emotionally mature enough to just, you know, not be passive aggressive about it, and, you know, not to just pick a fight about something that just is just so unnecessary. I just don't get it. So I don't like that he did it that way. Obviously she has some work to do herself. If everything has to be something that's so contentious, like, why couldn't you just ask the question? Like, why do you even care? Like, I don't know. Like, I don't care about stuff like that. I'm not going to ask nobody, who did you go to lunch with? If you decide to tell me you went to lunch today, you went with so-and-so, then that's something that you bring up in the conversation. But I don't care what he's like.
I mean, you know what? I think it really depends on your relationship. So I'll say this. I in this debate, I side with no one. Like, although I endorse for my relationship standards to include direct address. Right. And I don't deal well with passive aggression. I'm like, okay, let's just be. I take that to let's be aggressive. Like if it's passive aggressive, I'm gonna respond to it and greet that with aggressive, which doesn't do the right things. Right? That's not harmonious. Right? That's not cooperative. No. So I think that what it comes down to is, are we having a good faith discussion that is undergirded by trust? If we're having a good faith discussion, which is I define as I don't mean you harm and you don't mean me harm, right? So if you're asking who I went to lunch with and the context of our relationship is I don't be telling you stuff. And that upsets you. If you are asking me that in that context, and I then choose to omit who I went to lunch with, that is, I feel like, an act of aggression as well. Like the omission can be an act of aggression, right?
That's why I said he didn't need to do it that way either, because he was, again, you're trying to correct her behavior and she's not stupid, she's just immature.
Right. And I think a lot would be solved, and this is, I'm gonna go into a little bit of like therapy speak. The main thing here is name the feeling before you ask the question. And that is a strategy that a lot of couples therapists will use to make sure that things don't escalate into fights because of hidden feelings underneath the question. So if she named the feeling and said, hey, you know what, I'm feeling really unsure, or I'm feeling really confused about how you've been moving lately. So can you tell me like who you went to lunch with? Because it would give me a sense of assurance. Or if he were to say, you know, when you ask me that question, I kind of get like a little defensive because I don't think it really matters who I went to lunch with. So it's like, name the feeling so that you avoid this kind of explosive, like, well, you should have asked it like that, or you shouldn't even care where I'm at. Like, just let's talk about what the issue is, right? Because that's the passive aggression, right? Is that there's a whole other feeling, a whole other set of circumstances that went into you even asking that question and that go into that exchange after it. And I feel like neither party, or parties in that case, because there's multiple couples in that room, they're not acknowledging that, hey, this comes with context. So if you have a very trusting relationship and you're like, hey, did you go see Adam and Tony? No, I ain't see them. And you have a trusting relationship and none of that is material to what happens in your relationship.
Whatever goes in.
That exchange ends right there. You know what I'm saying? But if you have a relationship that is untrusting and that there are gaps in information that's causing this uncertainty with people, then it might be like, hey, I think it's relevant where you were because I don't know if you are always honest with me.
But if you have a relationship that's untrusting and there's gaps and things like that, why do you have a relationship?
Well, hey, look, you gotta learn somehow. You gotta learn somehow. You know what I'm saying? Like I've been tossed out a few relationships because I was like, I wasn't at lunch with nobody. I was home. I didn't eat lunch. I don't eat. I'll say whatever. You know what I'm saying? There was a point where I would really say literally whatever. Like,
oh my God.
Like, who's you at lunch with? I don't eat. I stopped eating. I'm on a diet. Like,
that's
I would
just
say
reckless nonsense.
Crazy shit. And I've been in relationships with people who also were like, oh yeah, like I was in a yoga class and came back with like wine on their breath and like, you know what I'm saying, getting texts from the other boo. So I think it just depends on the, like you said, the maturity level, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And then also the style of relationship you have. I think one of the things that kind of bothered me about the clip is like, there's this thing called, because I actually don't think monogamy is bad. I think what works for you, no matter what.
Yeah, I don't think that. Yeah, whatever works. Like I literally I'm just on that. Yeah.
But there is toxic monogamy, and I think toxic monogamy has, just like it has passive aggression, it has all these unspoken and unwritten rules, right? Like, okay, you can only be out with your homegirls for so long, or don't be out with your boys,
or you can no longer have friends of the opposite sex.
Or you can't have friends of the opposite sex, right? Like just crazy, like these unspoken rules that, unfortunately, on social media, people will, with their whole chest, defend these kinds of completely nutso rules for people. And I'm like, how did we get here?
Or I'm not even like a check-in type. Like, I don't need the good mornings. I don't need like these, like, that's just not, like, I speak with purpose, you know, so I don't need the formalities and the, hey, what's going on? Like, don't text me like sweet nothings.
You don't like your grand rising? You don't like your
grand rising queens. No, not a grand rising queen. Get out of my, actually, you know, it's so funny because if you grand rising queen me, I literally just will not respond.
Yo, I honestly though, like I saw a post the other day that just like, it really hit me where it hurt, but it's like, if you stop sending me memes, it's over. Like if the relationship has gotten to the point where we can no longer send each other funny memes or like,
Yeah,
or if it's been like days, like let's say that, you know, we have a good rapport, we communicate, blah, blah, blah. But it's like the memes are what shows me like we're in a positive space. And if it's been days, weeks since you sent me memes and it's like radio silence, no replies, I'm like, okay, so this one's over. Like this is
I can agree with that. Yeah, because memes are just very lighthearted. It's just goofy. It doesn't require a conversation. It's just like, hey, have a laugh. You know,
right.
I've got group chats where literally all we do is send memes all day.
Exactly, right. It's just
we don't
it's
get.
like
I don't know what.
love.
Yeah, I don't know what their day-to-days consist of. They don't know what my day-to-days consist of.
Right.
None of us really care, but we care about each other.
Right.
But the parameters of the relationship are such that we're not here like dumping our emotional, you know, issues or whatever, or our pain. We're not even talking about like what we have for breakfast. It's just like me. But these are people that are very valuable and important to me.
Oh, absolutely. I think the one thing that really bothered me too, to get back to that podcast discussion, the anonymous podcast, is it felt like when I read the replies that women were like, oh no, of course. Like, of course you should answer the phantom question. Like it seemed like so many women were taking up for that point of view. And I don't know. I think regardless of gender, I would think that was absurd.
I think that's absurd regardless of gender. And I just think it just promotes poor behaviors.
Right.
Like what are we even saying? Like how fragile are we, or what are we used to? Like what kind of, like, it's very unfortunate because that's a reaction to, I guess, certain kind of abuses that people are used to. If you're even normalizing something like that, like why are you kind of like giving your partner like the rundown on some like, yo, like, you know, tell me what you did today, you know, who was with, okay, good, just making sure, because like what?
Right.
If it's all that, like what are we even doing and why are we doing it?
Right. I don't think there's really, I don't think that can be sustained over time.
Yeah, that's very hard to live with. I don't think those kinds of behaviors, like if you're that insecure, that's not something that gets corrected overnight, you know, and that's certainly not something that I could deal with as my new kind of normal. Like that would not work for me.
But what's crazy is when you have the gallery of girlfriends who are gonna back up that behavior, and then the thousands of social media accounts who are gonna back up that behavior. Like that is the part of it that I really don't understand, and on both sides too. Like I said, I'm not siding with the guy here. I'm not siding with the woman. I think they're deeply flawed things about each of their approaches, but it seems like almost like people were fighting tooth and nail for their gender in that exchange. And I was just like, boys, I don't know if this is one to be proud of, that he's like, well, I'm going to be literal, like letter of the law. Like you didn't ask me what time.
He knew how she was going to react to that. That was my problem with that.
Right. And I also, like, you know, again, operate in good faith. You know, you're a woman, you know, your partner. If you know there are things that upset her, don't do things that upset her. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't compromise yourself. Don't compromise who you are. You don't necessarily have to, but don't do things to intentionally upset her, like stonewalling on an answer that you could very easily give, assuming there's no, you know, like things going on that you don't want to report about, that you wouldn't be proud of.
I think to your point, like, that's a great point. Like, it kind of goes back to like some of the stuff that we talked about in the past, like in terms of like this idea of like winning. So like, there's definitely like opportunities where it's like, listen, just give the person what they want. Let's just get out of this. But there has to be a point where sometimes you're just kind of like, okay, whatever. Listen, I went to lunch with Jerry. All right. Like, that's just what it was. And they let it go. But then you start to see that like, it becomes like a person like that is looking for an issue. They probably have the kind of personality where they're looking for some level of chaos on some level, right? So it's just going to keep escalating from there. First it was lunch, now it's dinner, now it's like a 3 a.m. phone call. Where are you at? It's like, dude, I was in bed sleep. Where would I be?
But here's the thing. I think it's like the Kim and Kanye thing we talked about, where some relationships underneath the surface level, they want that drama. They thrive. Like that's the passion and the romance for some people is the dysfunction, is that's finding ways to kind of like trick each other and compete and win, and like that ends up being what a lot of couples are, and not even consciously knowing that.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, I've talked to friends who like go through phones and like go through phones to cuss out people and call the girls and the text messages and all that, and it's just like, why are you so invested in that aspect of it as opposed to just like being invested in your own happiness? Like, if this is what this person's doing to you and it's a violation of the agreement, then either since you're agreeing to it, then either be non-monogamous
Right.
or leave.
And also, there's some truths that shouldn't be told, right? Like, so that's another thing that's happening for clout on social media, which is like the proud I'm exposing going through phones. Like, why are you proud of that? Like, that's not a behavior. That's not like, oh, look, I'm Columbo now. Like, I'm CSI. I did it. Like, I don't think that's something that you want to start celebrating in relationship life, or relationship world. And I don't know. I think things get a little screwy when people just defend their gender's behaviors, because there are some behaviors across the board, especially with toxic monogamy, that are wrong, that don't promote harmony, that don't promote that good faith kind of discussion and cooperation. That brings me to our most rowdy. This is like rowdy clip of probably like the last month, which was the Spirit Airlines fight. I know you saw that fight.
Oh yeah, I saw that fight several times.
First of all, over Spirit, like,
yeah, like why? Yeah, first of all,
you know
you already spent like triple over your ticket, because you gotta probably check in your purse. You gotta,
they making people buy seats on Spirit. Like, after you already got your ticket, you gotta buy your seat.
You gotta buy. Spirit is reckless, man. I flew Spirit once to Jamaica, and I didn't know that I don't know, my carry-on, I was supposed to did it online or something like that. So they literally charged me for my carry-on for each segment, because I went from New York to Jamaica. I'm sorry, New York to Miami to Jamaica. So each segment I had to pay for the carry-on. It was just some wild stuff, just because I just didn't do it procedurally. I'd never flown the airline, so I didn't know.
And like the Spirit airline, look, whatever is like the least amount of plane you need, that's what Spirit is rocking with. Because like I flew Spirit to the West Coast. I flew Spirit to LA like 3 years ago, and I was like, this is the most horrifying ride
bare bones,
I've ever taken in an airplane. Like, I was just like, yo, do we trust that that we're gonna live through this? Like, I wasn't really sure, because I'm not the most confident flyer, but I also travel a lot. Like, I'll take my Dramamine or do my little meditation or whatever. And usually it's like after that moment of takeoff, I'm good. But with Spirit, it was like, nah, this is it for me, G. Like, I lived a good life.
It is just, it's not comfortable. There's a lot of tacked on fees. There's a lot of uncertainty, and it's just not, and it's not even the greatest customer service necessarily. So actually, even though I think that the woman behaved while reckless, I can only but imagine like what his attitude towards her, based on my experiences with Spirit, he may not have been the most friendly person either. I don't know.
Well, this goes to the social media without context. So the breakdown, the tail of the tape. So when we drop into this conflict, one thing I noticed is that it's already underway. Because like, obviously people don't hit the record button on their phone until the smoke is already, you know what I mean? It's already accumulating. So the first thing you see is she is yelling, and she's up against him in his face.
You haven't lost your mind. Don't touch me ever in your life. You touched me first, and then you got in my face. Don't ever invade my personal space. Get out of my face! No, I'm not.
It's all on camera, sweetheart. You touched me.
I remember very clearly what he's saying as the video opens, which is, you're in my personal space, get out of my personal space, right? He's saying
that's a valid ask.
But you in my personal space. You're in my personal space. Stay out of my personal space.
Right. But here's the issue though I had with that, because if we're really breaking it down, right? When you talk about personal space, and you telling people to get out of your personal space, you can't be like up against them saying that. Like, and also, my G, you at work, bro. Like, exactly. I know that somebody is violating you, but you are at work at Spirit Airlines, where you already know any kind of customer service job at Spirit is going to be stressful. You're going to be stressed. You know what I'm saying? Because like, people already are getting the raw deal, but you're at work. I don't know about you, but if I'm at work, and working retail is hard.
I've worked in retail before for many years.
And multiply that by 1,000 if you're in airline customer service.
Yes, people are just unhinged when it comes to the airport.
Absolutely. So I don't think that, even though he was making a reasonable demand verbally, I don't think his body was making that same kind of statement. Like, I think he was just as much chest to chest with her, you know, right? And I was like, that's not giving what you think it's giving. Like, that's not giving, I need personal space. That's giving, I'm gonna take space here physically, right? So although my immediate mental reaction to his words were, word, yeah, get out of his face. As I watched the video, I was like, but my guy, you're not necessarily avoiding conflict here.
Right. Yeah, no, he was giving a little something back. But then things took a turn for the absolute worst.
Yes, absolutely. So,
and yeah, go ahead.
Someone gets between them, as she has done a couple like little shove moves. So she's up against him a couple different times when he's asking for his personal space. Someone gets between them, and then she does a couple shoves, and then she hits him. She actually hits him, but she hits him, and this is the worst kind of cowardly way to set off a fight. When you hit somebody when somebody's between y'all, like that is the moment you choose to hit somebody. Like, that is the worst, most cowardly way to initiate a fight.
She knew what she was doing.
She knew exactly what she was doing. And that, like, now, again, that personally would annoy me. That personally would violate me, right? But I also feel like I have a little bit of a code, and I know what a cowardly fighter looks like, right? So I don't know if I'm going to go hard after a cowardly fighter. You know what I mean? Because a cowardly fighter is probably not a threat to me in the same way. Now, that's not to say that he can't do what makes him feel safe, but I personally am not going to go after a cowardly fighter.
Well, I'm going to say this, safety or not, whether or not he was necessarily in fear or what have you, you put your hands on somebody, it's all bets off, man.
All bets are off.
I believe he should have smacked the shit out of her, and he should have whooped her ass.
Well, look, he gets a good blow off. And this is
a good one.
So there's another turn, because I'm like, I'm not the biggest NFL watcher, but yo, the way he came off that line, he looked like a defensive lineman. He pushed, rolled, he spun, right? He caught a spin move, and he got the right cross. So he had some pause on him, and he has kind of some quickness. I feel like people underestimate how big dudes might be quick in a short space.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't put anything past anybody. Big dudes, short dudes, small dudes. If somebody knows, you know, how to be quick and how to fight even. Oh, absolutely. I'm not, I can't size somebody up just by looking at them. I don't do that. I don't do that. But I would not have somebody trying to a good Samaritan. In this particular case, I think that dude really, really, really wanted he knew that where this was going, and he knew it was not going anywhere good. He got between them to try to stop the fight, to try to de-escalate the situation. And when she let that cheap shot off, though, it's like.
So here's my other gripe about the Good Samaritans in this case. And I although I understand it from a certain point of view, this is the part where I also kind of like diverge, because the same way I'll say that homeboy could have probably deregulated. He could have regulated himself in the beginning and been like, if you want the personal space, back out of this situation. That would have been a really great bet for him. But the other point where I feel like I'm on his side is, I noticed that the dudes who entered to de-escalate or break them up were really trying to de-escalate him and trying to
I noticed that too. Exactly. That's
right.
A great
and one, he's the black man in the situation. No matter what you might think about people, the black man in the situation, and I think we learned this from the Chris Rock, Will Smith shit. We have to restrain ourselves so much more than most people imagine.
Absolutely.
And then the way that they responded to him was as if he could not control himself. And I'm like, let's just keep the energy for her to, like, if we're trying to de-escalate, let's try to get both people away from each other rather than pushing him to get out of this.
Because there's another, it's so interesting too, because there's another dude that comes in like, yo, if you're gonna hit a woman, hit me. But that dude I noticed didn't want no smoke, because he knew that dude was bigger than him, and he was he would have whipped his ass too. So he was just kind of posturing and acting like he was gonna do something, but he was just acting, because he didn't do anything. He really wasn't doing nothing. The
Not-
other guy, again, so you're right. I think that this would have went a lot better if maybe two people had come in and really just physically kind of moved her out the way, not in an aggressive way, but just spaced it out and just
Yes.
spaced them out. So that you needed two people to do this job. This is
Yes.
not a one-man job.
Yes.
And then we just would not have, we wouldn't even need the footage, or this wouldn't have gotten to where it's gotten to. But
Right.
you know, I listen, I still see, even with little context, you know, listen, it's an airport. So if you catch a charge in the airport, that's a Fed charge. What are you doing?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, you can't be
Do
fighting
you
in the
think
airport.
he's gonna catch a charge off that?
Well,
The
no,
spirit?
see, now, I've never worked for an airline, although listen, let me tell you something. Again, I told you about the jobs that I want to do. Another one of the jobs I've always wanted, and I have applied so many times in my life, was flight attendant. I want to be like,
Wow.
oxygen is flowing, so put your mask on, but make sure you put your
You'd
mask
actually
on.
be a really
before
good flight
securing
attendant. I
your
feel
name.
like.
I would love to be.
Yeah,
I would
you'd
even
be a
wear
great flight
a
attendant.
pencil skirt. And I just want to hand people Biscoff cookies. I want to smile at them.
No shades of flight
Honestly.
attendants, but I feel like it's a little below your pay grade. Like I feel like they don't pay you what you would deserve as a flight attendant.
I'll be so happy. And like, how is everybody doing on this flight? I would just, oh my God, I wish I could just be a flight attendant for a day.
Yo, maybe we get an airline sponsor. Let's get Spirit in here. Let's get Spirit in here
Spirit,
to
come
go
on, man.
give back to the community. You know what I'm saying? Give back to the community. Be a sponsor on the podcast. Give some promotional codes out. Let's start to repair this relationship between Spirit and the people of the world.
And that would make my entire year. I would even be a flight attendant on Spirit, even though, do they even serve anything besides like peanuts and little mini bottles of water?
They be serving hot air on
And
Spirit.
don't they charge you
Yeah,
for
exactly.
that too?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yo,
That'd
you gotta
be a
ride
wild
with the
ride.
oxygen mask on Spirit. Get out of here.
You gotta make sure. So I mean, yeah, but I don't condone any of this really ultimately, because it should have never got to that point. I mean, the onus is really on the employee to know, you know, again, people are really, really wild in airports. I've seen things in airports, you know, just within the pandemic space that, you know, there's an intensity to travel right now where people are just, they're really just kind of worked up, you know? So there's all kinds of incidents. I mean.
Oh, you saw the one where the airline employee, I think he might have been a baggage handler, and he had to knock a dude out. And it was very clear because the dude was getting very aggressive about what happened to his bag. So again, a very stressed, agitated person was confronting an airline employee, and the airline employee, in this case, I feel like he was much more justified in terms of how it escalated, because again, the dude initiated contact. He was being violent and aggressive the entire time, and it was like, this was like, I'm not the person at the desk who makes sure you have your ticket. Like, I'm literally a baggage handler. Like, I'm interfacing with customers, and you're coming at me wild aggressive. And I don't know about who you know in your life who are like airline employees of that ilk, of like baggage handlers who aren't front facing, but usually they're coming from backgrounds where it's like, nah, G, like, you don't want to smoke.
I know it's like, they're not,
you know,
customer service. They're not necessarily friendly. It's just it's a means to an end. They're just getting the job done. Yeah, they're definitely, usually, I have known baggage handlers, and you're correct. They're not the kind of people that even want to get to talking, and they'll usually have like, zoned out, just doing the job. That's so.
And so he had to cold cock him, and that dude, you know, ended up like knocked out off of, you know, if I understand everybody has lost a bag. If you've traveled with any airline, and
it's happened to me before.
I don't care what class. I don't care if you have points, if you're in business, if you're in economy, like every airline, if you have traveled even semi-frequently, is going to lose your luggage. And so taking it up with the baggage handler is like, come on, bro. Like, this is a much larger system than this one person who's trying to like just get bags off a conveyor belt and make sure he's trying to do his job so that this doesn't happen to another person.
Right.
And you coming at him because of your individual bag. So you're right. Those airline situations are always highly stressful. And I think the thing that I noticed about this with the position of the Spirit Airlines employee, which is, again, I'm coming down on the side of neither in this case, because I just feel like, yes, when you put your hands on someone, all bets are off. But I don't, as, again, a human, a man who's stronger than a woman who would be smaller than me, I just don't know if there's a situation where I'm gonna strike. You know, I think it's a difference between defensive stances, getting somebody off you,
okay.
getting
So you
out of
would- okay.
somebody's space, and striking someone. Right. So
Mhm.
I definitely hear you on the all bets are off point. I hear you on that, but I know I personally, again, my own personal way of handling this situation is like I'm either diffusing, and also where's your coworkers, bro? Like, where's that
Yeah,
coworker
where was that? Yeah, why would
that's
why
gonna
was he
be
just
like,
left?
yo, like it's not worth it. Like,
Yeah, yeah, somebody that knows them, or just like they just kind of left them. Like, why would only one person be in the terminal? Like,
Yeah.
that then the gate. That does sound strange, right?
yeah, that's
Like,
real
when is that ever just one person? So then, where was everybody? Why
right.
wasn't
And
he
it's also like
recorded?
it makes me think, and this is just a theory, it's speculation, but like maybe people knew you had that kind of temper and you was gonna get caught out there, and they were like, oh, that's Joe.
Yeah, could be.
He
Yeah,
don't know how to
could be a
act. Like,
series. Yeah, could be a series of incidents. Some people just are
right.
not built for that kind of work. But I was gonna say this really quick. From having worked in retail, like I remember, like sometimes retail like give you like these corporate trainings, and they're like these sort of little webinars or whatever, and you just
Yeah.
click through, fill out some little multiple
Mhm.
choice. But one of the things I remember in a like a robbery training from my last retail job, as I'm going through everything, is they said, like, literally it said in the slide, and it used to crack me up. This is like a yearly training, and it would say, when all else fails, fight. And that was basically yes, it was. This is a Fortune 500 company that I had worked for, and they were just like, yeah, like if you have to fight, if this person's aggressing you, if you're in a situation where you just need to, like, this is justified. But
Wow.
again, it's not like just fight somebody. It's more so like if somebody hits you. So in this case, what I
Wow.
saw was that the man was suspended.
Mm,
So I think just maybe just in context of looking at the cameras from
Mhm.
not just the passenger point of view, but looking at the cameras from what is actually in the airport, there may have
Right.
been some validity to whatever he felt was going on there. But
Sure.
to your point, though, there's another point I wanted to make, that I saw the guy get interviewed that actually captured the footage. And I think he
Really?
said he was like grabbing a snack and he saw the commotion, but it just so happens that that man is a professional photographer. And I was just so like kind of tickled by that detail,
That's great.
so that's probably why he was kind of like really in and just
Mhm.
capturing, so,
Yeah. He
shout out
caught
to the
all the
professional.
emotion too.
He
Like
caught
he got
everything in it.
Yeah.
So there's some credit to be given to that man for knowing exactly what to capture and not having a shaky camera, or being out of
Well,
focus.
shout out to him. Shout out to him for catching one of the most epic moments in social media fights this year. Yo, it's crazy that you should say that, like, when all else fails, fight, because I remember I was also at like a major media company, and we did active shooter drills. And in our
Yes,
active
yes.
shooter drill, they said a similar thing, that like,
Mhm.
hey, if you're in a corner, it's like, yo, try to go after this person,
Mhm.
try to debilitate him or disable that person. And I was just like, yo, this is wild times, yo. This
Yes.
is actually real wild times where they're telling you, yo, like the world is crazy out here. You might have to fight
Yes.
somebody. Like, there's no other recourse.
And no, you're right. And I, yeah, it would also be included in active shooter drills for us too. And I was just thinking, like, in a moment like that, do you recall your training? Like, let me try to wrestle the gun out of this man's hand.
No,
Like,
you
what are we
can't.
talking? What are we?
You can't.
Yeah.
Then look, I'm just gonna tell people there's no job or training worth it. So just like do what you have to do to keep yourself good. Because like if what you have to do to keep yourself good is get out of that situation, great. If you have to shove a person to the ground, if you have to call a cop,
Just get out.
do any of those things if it keeps you good.
Yeah, but don't worry about no goods. Your life is important, not whatever. They got all that stuff is insured.
Exactly. This has been Unhinged, episode 12. So great to see you, Koku.
It's great to see you too.
Peace.
Peace. Thanks for checking out the Unhinged podcast with Koku Puff and Drew Breez. If you like what you see, make sure you like, subscribe, and ring that bell.